Hey, and thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Loaded Radio podcast. And I'm Scott Penfold from Loaded Radio here with you. And this week, I am talking to the one and only Ben Hutcherson from the band KHEMMIS. Such a huge fan of this band, great doom metal, and they've got the new album Deceiver, which is out now, and it is a great album front to back. I just can't stop listening to it. So definitely looking forward to be talking to Ben from KHEMMIS in just a few. And as well, as always, in the second portion of the podcast, I'll be joined by Loaded Radio's own Johnny Rude, live from Las Vegas, Nevada, where we're going to be talking about the week that was in hard rock and metal, going over all the news that happened in heavy metal and in the rock scene. But first off, as I mentioned, this guy is guitar player, vocalist for the band KHEMMIS. We're talking great, extreme doom metal, death metal, call them what you want, they're awesome. I'm talking, of course, about Ben Hutcherson. Ben, great to have you on the show. How are you, man?
Hey, how you doing, my friend?
First off, I really appreciate you taking the time, dude. I'm a huge fan. This is really cool to talk to you.
Well, thank you so much for saying that. I'm excited to be here. It's so sometimes people complain about doing press, but I mean, I love to talk. I love to talk to people, and I love to talk to people from, all over the world. So I'm 3 for 3.
Now, first off, we're obviously going to talk about Deceiver, but what prompted the release of the full-length album?
The singles that we've released from Deceiver so far are intentionally chosen to sort of give people a sense of what Deceiver is about. Starting with House of Cadmus. I'm sorry, that's not what we started with at all. Sometimes when you do a lot of press and then your mouth starts to say the wrong words and you're like, those aren't the words that I meant to say. Started with Living Pyre, in fact. When we released that, it feels like it was 100 years ago. It's weird to think that it was just a little over, 6 weeks ago that we released that. Mm-hmm. It's important, I think, to pick the singles that represent the album so that you don't I hate to use words like sell, like you're selling people, something else, but really to not feel like you're trying to sort of trick them into listening to something that's radically different from a single. I've had that experience. I'm sure we all have, of you hear a track from a band's album and you're like, all right, this is great. Let's do this. And then you get the album and you're like, what is happening? I feel like it was a bait and switch from the get-go. And I was into the single, not so much the album. So, it's important for us to give people something that is immediately accessible while also still making it clear, what this album is about, whether it's in terms of the lyrical content or the incorporation of a wider variety of musical influences in the past, because there's always going to be that necessary balance of being honest about where we are now and not trying to recreate anything we've done in the past, while also not trying to run away from the rest of our catalog, and to recognize that there are people that have been with us from the get-go, and that there is a much larger number of potential people coming on board each day, and to give them something that can really give them something to chew on, I think. Of
course. Now, you actually mentioned the song Living Pyre. Killer tune, man. What can you tell me about that one?
Thanks. That one is really special to me because, I say it's really special to me in the same way that, nobody has a favorite child, but everybody really has a favorite child.
Right.
This song represented a turning point for us when it came to writing this album. We had begun sort of kicking around ideas as far back as fall of 2019, but due to a number of things, not the least of which is obviously the global pandemic in which we find ourselves still today, the entire creative process got disrupted in a way that not only could we not have foreseen, but that we were not initially prepared to navigate. And it took a lot of individual work to get ourselves back into healthy creative places. And it took a lot of work as a band to come together and rediscover the joy and I think the common factors that makes KHEMMIS special to us. And so I guess the beginning of last summer or so, again, we'd kicked around some ideas, but we hadn't really found our groove yet. And I sat down in this very office one day, picked up a guitar, and for the first time in a few years, felt connected to myself creatively, to the ethos of the band, and found myself in one of those, very precious flow states where it just feels like you're tapped into something greater than yourself. And I sat in here for the better part of 8 hours, just riffing and demoing and sort of processing ideas as they came. And by the end of the day, I had a skeleton of a song that I sent over to Phil and Zach, and I said something to the extent of, brothers, I think I'm back. And it really felt like it lit a fire, which might sound contrived. At this point, the song's not called Living Fire. It was just called like song, 2 or something like that.
Right.
But it really lit that creative spark in me. And I feel like collectively that we pretty rapidly got back into that collective creative headspace where Phil and I were sending ideas back and forth a couple times a day. Zach was offering feedback. We were amassing this body of raw material. And I really do trace it all back to, sitting here and just being able to not only knock out those riffs, but to have this kind of moment where almost an out of body moment where I could almost step back and see that my hands were doing these things independent of thought. And I was like, I got to stay in this headspace. I haven't been here in so long. I got to make this count.
Knowing that story, now when I listen to the song, it's going to mean that much more, man. I just, that's so cool. That it's amazing what one song can do, really.
Absolutely. And, the lyrics as well, Phil and I talked about this quite a bit, that the same way that song signified, the sort of, the newfound spark, if you will, musically, being able to have this skeleton of a song also gave him a starting place for thinking about lyrics broadly about the album. But this was the first one that he'd sort of roughed out. And the way that lyrics tend to work in our band is that, Phil comes in with, a broad set of ideas. Sometimes he'll have words for a song, sometimes just sort of concepts. And over the years, we've become much more collaborative in how we create these lyrics. But these words were very much from his heart and expressing, that sort of disconnect that he'd felt from sharing some part of himself through these lyrics and through these stories. And that, all of us being able to suddenly get back on the same page, or at least start to get back on the same page, sort of opened up the creative floodgates for him and let him start to kind of address those things as well.
How about House of Cadmus? What can you tell me about that track? House
of Cadmus has a riff in it, this sort of initial motif that starts off clean and then morphs throughout the song that dates back to maybe early 2019, maybe even 2018. I demoed out that riff and thought, look, there's something here. I'm not sure what it is, but I like it. It's creepy, but it's pretty. And that, that's kind of a vibe we channel pretty often. Yes. But coming back to that riff in the context of, being in quarantine and being in a place where we had to confront our own inner demons, I suppose, gave a lot of those older riff ideas and lead ideas a new kind of power. I think we all saw them in a new light, and Zach really latched onto that one because it had this waltz feel to it. In fact, the working title at one point for the song was just Death Waltz. Doesn't really make sense, but it sounds evil, Yeah, definitely. And despite the fact that it has some ideas that we've been kicking around for a while, it's actually the last song we finished for the album, in part because we were able to approach all of these songs and indeed the whole album in a more compositional manner than we had in the past. And part of that is confidence in our own songwriting abilities. And part of that, too, is doing a lot of that initial writing remotely. You can quite literally look at how these pieces are arranged on the screen when you've got them demoed out and tabbed out and things like that. Mm-hmm. And we had all these different nuances and all these different little transitional elements. And the song felt bogged down, like it just couldn't quite hit its stride. And there was a moment where Zach said, guys, we are overthinking this. We got to cut all this smart stuff out. And one of the sort of I won't say unspoken, occasionally spoken rules of KHEMMIS is when in doubt, keep it simple. All of the instrumental ability and songwriting cleverness in the world is no substitute for writing a compelling series of passages that sound like a song. And really having to check in with ourselves and say, look, we're getting too fancy for our own pants here. Let's cut all this stuff out. What's this about? It's about the atmosphere. What channels the atmosphere? It's these sections. Scrap all this other stuff. And very quickly, we had this song that was very emotional and very brooding, I suppose, that we knew pretty quickly would work as the second track on the album as a sort of counterpoint to the higher energy of the album opener, to sort of set people up and then drop them down quite literally into the depths of hell.
Beautiful. So it's somewhat like an evil emotional roller coaster, if you would, really.
Yeah. Life itself is a series of balancing acts. And, there are so many ebbs and flows in our days and in our lives that we wanted to have the flow of these songs reflect that kind of emotional intensity and the sort of oscillation between those highs and lows that we all experience. But I think that we have all experienced in a very profound way in the last 18 months.
Wow. Now, are you guys still currently without a bass player, or what's the deal there?
So we have a bass player who's playing live with us, David Small, who I have known for several years. He and I also play in a death metal band called Glacial Tomb together. Beautiful. So, and Dave is simply one of the most talented musicians I've ever met. He's, he can play anything and everything. It's pretty wild. But he's handling it live for right now. But the creative heart of the band lies with the three of us, and we'd sort of made ourselves the promise that we weren't going to rush into a new relationship, if you will. That we can have Dave handle things live and, just focus on, as cliched as it might sound, being the best version of ourselves individually and collectively as possible. That the idea of, we have to add a fourth member right away is counterproductive and could in fact be detrimental to us. So, taking our time, the one thing we don't get more of in this life, so we gotta take care of it, is time. And so we want to make sure we're spending ours wisely.
Certainly so. And, another thing that I really love that you guys do is you got some of the greatest covers, man, like Dio, Down the Hole by Alice in Chains. Is there any chance or any thought of maybe at some point releasing an EP or an album of KHEMMIS covers?
It's certainly something we've talked about. And Monty Connor at Nuclear Blast has, asked us about it a couple of times. The thing about covers for us is we like doing them in a way that does them justice. And so that means they wind up taking a long time to pull together. Mm-hmm. And, again, sort of reflecting on how precious time is. If it's a matter of we can spend this time to get 6 covers together, or we could write 6 or 7 or 8 originals, we're generally going to go for the original material because that feels like the right move. It feels more compelling to us. Certainly. But at the same time, there are certainly points where the idea of sitting down and writing a new album is maybe less feasible or less appealing. Writing a new album is demanding and draining, and it takes some time to sort of come back around to that writing headspace. So I won't say that we'll never do it, but I will say that if it happens, it'll probably be further down the road.
Of course. Well, obviously, Deceiver is the main priority at this point, too. But even just looking back at some of your past, back in 2016, just the overwhelming response from like a Rolling Stone as well from Decibel back in that time. And you guys had only been going for about 4 years. Did you find that really overwhelming for you?
Not at the time. And part of that was that a lot of the things that were happening were sort of outside of our field of vision. Things happening sort of like big picture in the industry. Like we were still very much trying to wrap our heads around just playing shows outside of Denver. Zach and I had played in touring bands, when we were younger, but initially there wasn't much of a plan for KHEMMIS to do anything other than, play some shows, maybe put out an album we would see. But it was the kind of thing that once we started getting on the road more and started doing more press, that we saw that, in fact, the landscape had changed pretty rapidly for us, and in really exciting ways. And I have to be honest that it really is, I think, a testament to the heart of the band and the people that we've surrounded ourselves with, that navigating those changes has by and large been a painless affair. I mean, it's been scary, I guess, at times, just because, once music starts involving words like lawyer and contract, I think justifiably musicians get a little bit nervous. We tend to not be the most well-versed in legalese, sure. But it helps to know good people and to have recommendations for, like in our case, an absolutely phenomenal attorney. And we've always been able to work with good people in the industry, whether it's Dave Adelson at 20 Bucks Spin, Monty Connor at Nuclear Blast, amazing people in the press, Albert and everyone at Decibel, that have always, I think, treated us with compassion, with kindness, and also helped us sort of understand the terrain as we were navigating it. We very rarely felt like we were going in completely unprepared to any kind of scenario. But, there was still a lot of learning on the fly that was happening.
Hunted is such a strong release too. I mean, I think that album's phenomenal. So I can understand why it caused such a dent back in 2016, certainly.
It's funny to hear people say that, funny in the kind of cosmic sense, only because we didn't know that we were doing anything that was going to really, not like we didn't feel confident in the album, but, what hubris does it take to say, no, this is the album that's going to really make people pay attention to us? That's right. What a million unsigned bands playing crappy dive bars on Tuesdays say about every album.
Right.
And in fact, I think that attitude has always served us well, that our guiding principle has always been, let's release music that's honest. And more than anything, let's make the music that we want to hear. The fact that has paid off is incredibly satisfying, but it doesn't change the fact that has to be the kind of barometer for what we do. Because the moment you try to quote unquote make it, or you try to anticipate what fans or critics or labels or anyone else wants to hear, you're messing up, because you can't possibly know that. You can't possibly get that right. All you can do is do something you believe in and hope that it lands with some other people. And in our case, we've been very fortunate to be able to have that experience.
Awesome, Ben. I can't thank you enough for joining me here on the show, and it's always great just to hear you. I can't wait to see you guys live again. That's going to be awesome.
Fantastic. Hey, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. This was a blast for me as well. Take care, and we hope to see you out on the road.
Certainly, Ben. Take care. All the best, man.
Cheers.
There he is. There's Ben Hutcherson from KHEMMIS. And don't forget, Deceiver, the new album, is out now, and it is killer front to back, man. But hey, I'm Scott Penfold, and we are midway through this edition of the Loaded Radio podcast. I'm being joined now by Loaded Radio's own Johnny Rude, live from Las Vegas, Nevada. And we're going to go over the week that was in hard rock and metal. John, what's going on?
Oh, not too much.
I'm just taking a look at what we got here for Loaded News. Adrian Smith and Richie Cotson released a new music video, John. That's something. Did you know that they were working together, Adrian Smith from Iron Maiden and Richie Cotson? Did you know they...
No, I don't. I mean, maybe, but I'm going to say no. Yeah, I'm going to say no. But, I could have read something like that months ago that they were working together. Who knows? I wonder if he's stealing his chick. He might be stealing. That's why he's working with him. He's got a hot wife or girlfriend.
Now, when Richie Cotson played with Poison, because you bring that up, was it Ricky Rocket's chick that he stole? Or
yes. He just got in the band. They just finished a record. And lo and behold, Ricky found out that he was doing his wife, or soon to be ex-wife, or whatever the hell it was. No. You don't do those things, Scott.
No, especially when
you join a huge band and you start screwing around with the drummer's wife?
That's not
What
good.
are you thinking? So Adrian Smith, if you're listening, be careful.
Back to Adrian Smith. The project's called Smith Cotson. They've got Better Days is the name of the music video. So there, I don't know. Yeah, I was just scrolling through when I saw that. Well, he's also playing with the Winery Dogs with Mike Portnoy and Billy Sheehan, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. He's a wicked guitar player, great singer.
Oh, he is definitely, man.
So I mean, who knows?
Just want your chick around him. That's all.
Yeah, just exactly. The guy doesn't care. Joins a huge band and blows it.
Yeah. Great White's Mark Kendall confirms singer Terry Illouz was fired via email. This is news. Jesus, dude.
Wow. Yeah, I know Terry, and I've talked to him out here. He lives out here, and one day he's vamped, and next day he's not. He's out of the band.
Oh, really? Do you know Terry?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, I was just reading off stuff here. Oh, what else?
He was the original singer he still is the singer for XYZ.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah, that's where he came from.
Oh, like Inside Out and all that stuff?
A little Inside Out with Pat Fontaine.
That's right. How's he doing?
He's good. I believe it or not, I ran into him about 2 months ago. It was a friend's birthday. It was actually a friend, and he showed up. It was the first time he'd been out in 2 years.
Skid Row's Rob Hammersmith names his top 5 drumming influences.
Who's Rob Hammersmith?
Rob Hammersmith. I guess he plays drums in Skid Row.
Oh, he's the drummer. He's the third drummer.
Yeah,
fourth,
third
maybe?
or fourth or something like that. Yeah. So,
right.
I mean, I don't know.
Dave Affuso.
Yeah.
He's the original drummer. He said he would love to get Skid Row back together under one condition, though, Scott.
What was that?
As long as Sebastian's singing for it. Other than that, no go for him.
Yeah. Well, I don't think Rachel Bolan wants that to happen, or
no
Snake Sabo either. You know,
no. They'd make $2,000 or $1 million. Let's stick with the $2,000.
Yeah. To me, it doesn't make sense. I mean, is Sebastian Bach that much of a prick to work with? I mean, is he that bad?
Yeah. I mean, 20 some odd years ago, something went down between them. And again, it's too bad that happened. But again, it's that money, power, ego thing. And it just takes hold. And it wasn't his band. He was the hired guy. He got to join the band, full time. And I don't know exactly what happened, but I think they got into a fight. And maybe I think Sebastian, kicked the crap out of him or something stupid like that. And yeah, so he said never again. And, Sebastian's, of course, he's going, hey, let's just bury it, man. We're all alive. Every guy's alive in that band. They could be doing something and making money. Just, like the Bullet Boys, Torian and the rest of the guys, who is incredibly difficult to work with from what I've heard.
Yeah.
But you put your differences aside. You only live once. Make as much money as you can doing what you love doing, and you tolerate the person, or you just work on stage and then see ya. You don't ever have to see the guy except for that 90 minutes on stage.
Yeah. Yeah. It's worked, right? I mean, it's a punch in the clock even. I mean, just hopefully maybe it wasn't a Richie Cotson type deal. I mean,
oh no, see that's a little different, but I don't think that happened.
Yeah. You don't want to pull a Cotson.
No, don't, or an Ellefson for that matter. Yeah, you know who else just announced their full-fledged residency is Journey out here at the New Virgin Hotel.
Oh, I know it was Foreigner the other day. You sent me that.
They were in the Macy's Christmas parade.
Right.
A massive pulling the wool over everybody's eyes cover band. Not one original member. Jeff Pilson's in that.
So it's kind of like
Kelly Hansen. Yeah, Kelly Hansen from Hurricane. He's singing for it. He's the Lou Gramm.
Yeah.
Jeff Pilson is the bass player. I guess here's the thing with
from
bands
Dawkins.
Dawkins. Here's the thing with bands like that. Back in the day, there were no real celebs like who than Lou Gramm and Mick Jones. Who can you tell me in Foreigner?
Just those two.
Right. And that's what I mean. They're faceless guys. They wrote great songs. They had great records. Yeah. That's why this can be a cover band. And that's what it is. There's not one original member in that band. Mick Jones owns it and runs it. And he shows up at the odd show, but it's a glorified cover band.
It's kind of like Quiet Riot to a degree. And also it's something that actually David Coverdale was commenting on too, that he's doing the final tour with Whitesnake right now.
Yeah.
And he said that he wants to retire from touring. He might have somebody else stepping in front Whitesnake, which would leave no original members whatsoever in Whitesnake.
No, well, you and I talked about this, I think, a while ago. I don't mean like years ago, but like just a few weeks ago, about these groups. I think it was the Sabbath when they had Bev Bevan from ELO drumming, and you had Ian Gillan singing, and you had Geezer Butler and Tony Iommi. And it's Sabbath based on Tony Iommi and Butler, but it's like a super group. And that's what Whitesnake, even when they did Still of the Night, it was like a super group because you had all these different dudes from different bands to form this one band. The only reason it's Whitesnake is Coverdale. And if Coverdale's not in it, you can't go out there and call it Whitesnake. You may as well call it Foreigner.
Exactly. I mean, even if you stuck John Sykes in there, which I don't think will ever happen, but even if you did, it wouldn't be Whitesnake. You need Coverdale. But I think that definitely when it comes to like, if there were to be a second fiddle in that band, I'd say it would be John Sykes.
Yeah. You go from the Slide It In record, which was massively huge. That's what broke the band in the States. And that was Sykes and Killer Player. Yeah. And then immediately after that, you put out what was that record, Still of the Night, and all those songs with Tawny Kitaen in the video. I think it was just called Whitesnake.
Just the self-titled album.
Yeah, and you had Adrian Vandenberg, you had John Sykes, Rudy Sarzo, Tommy Aldrich, and David Coverdale, and you had
that's a killer band, dude.
Oh yeah, but then you had didn't what's his name play in that band too for a bit? Was he in that lineup? Steve Vai?
Oh, he did. That's right. He did play with Whitesnake around that time. Yeah.
So it's a super group. It's David Coverdale owns the name. It's Whitesnake. So he gets these guys. And now he's got Joel Hoekstra, I think Reb Beach, and he's got Tommy Aldrich is still drumming. I mean, he's been in that band longer than any band that I've known him in now. It's been Whitesnake. I mean, I saw them with Cozy Powell. And I saw it with the Slide It In.
You know what the new bass player for Whitesnake is, right? It's the Irish chick that was playing
with AJ.
Yeah, plays with AJ.
Yeah, that's right. I did see that. She's playing bass for Whitesnake. But no, she left and Todd Kern subbed in for her gig.
She's playing with Whitesnake now.
Which is a far substantially bigger gig, but it's just a weird one.
Tanya O'Callahan
is playing. Yeah, see that to me is weird.
Why is that?
It's just weird. I think there might be more to it than just her in the band. Is she dating Coverdale?
I have no idea.
Who knows, right? I don't. That to me is just weird. Nothing. She's a great player, but it's just an odd mix. When I heard that,
the first woman to ever play in Whitesnake.
Yeah, and it's his final tour. There's got to be something else in there. Something else.
Maybe more will be revealed, man. Who knows, right?
Yeah, who knows? Yeah,
who knows? Let's see what. I mean, there's not really too much else happening. I mean, you got Trivium. They announced a couple of live stream shows from the new headquarters, the Hangar. You got King's X is working on artwork for an upcoming studio album. Judas Priest announced more rescheduled dates with now Queens are basically going to be opening up for Judas Priest on their 50 Heavy Metal Years tour. Originally, I think Queensryche were supposed to be opening up for Scorpions in Las Vegas at the Residency. Now that's going to be Skid Row. So Queensryche now hitting the road with Judas Priest for this North American tour. That's kicking off on March the 4th in Peoria, Illinois, and then wraps up April 13th. First Ontario Center, John, in Hamilton, Ontario. Yeah, there you go.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, that'll be a good tour.
That would be good. But this is all 2023, or is it 2022?
2022, that is, for Priest.
Really? I heard it got switched. I heard it again. I could be wrong. I heard they postponed a lot of these tours to 2023, like Ozzy.
No, this is 2022. That's right. Okay. March through April 2022.
Wow. All right. Interesting.
Bruce Kulick actually paid a really nice tribute to Eric Carr for the anniversary, for 30-year anniversary of his passing. The Bruce Kulick band that was actually on the Kiss cruise, he's going to keep touring with that band. Apparently they're awesome.
Yeah. I forget who's in it, but you're right. They do all the kickoffs for that, those Kiss cruises. You'll see that. And I think it was Vinnie Vincent. Who was it? Oh, it was somebody I know who it was. It was Bob Kulick. Kept trying to slide in. And finally, Gene put the gauntlet down and said, look, you've never been a member of Kiss. Your brother has, but not you. No, there's no laminate. There's no nothing. Unfortunately, he's passed away, but that's that's his claim to fame. He kept trying to push it. And finally, Gene and Paul said, enough is enough, dude. You're not involved in this. Yeah, beat it. So what he ended up doing a couple of years ago before he died, he went to a bar that was very close to where the cruise leaves from in Miami, and he put a band together and he was playing there just to get some sort of notoriety that he had something to do with it. And, that's what Bob did. That was his whole kind of claim to fame.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, were you at this? I heard Vince Neil, he played Drinksgiving for a free Vegas concert. Did you go to that?
No.
He played on Fremont.
Oh, I did hear about this, but no. See, I did read about it. I wasn't sure if he was going to be on Fremont or was he in one of the little bars there.
He was on Fremont, dude. He played Fremont.
Yeah. So I don't know. No, I wouldn't have gone to that.
It was called Drinksgiving, and Vince Neil celebrates Drinksgiving with free Las Vegas concert. It was on November 24th on the Fremont Street Experience, and it was an epic drink fest and block party. Well, I mean, that would be the drink fest place, would be Fremont.
And that would be the guy to host it.
Drinksgiving.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Isn't he supposed to be laying off the booze and trying to lose the weight right now?
Since 1983, he's supposed to be laying off the booze. And there's a reason why. Just go Google Vince Neil. Yeah, terrible. Drinksgiving. You could have given the guy a better name than Drinksgiving for Vince Neil. It's just, come on. Wow.
Drinksgiving.
Drinksgiving. What does that mean?
All right, we're going to wrap this up. But don't forget, check out loadedradio.com for all your hard rock and metal news daily, as well as the 24-hour radio stations there for you, and as well our podcasts and tons more. Don't forget, download the Loaded Radio app, which is completely free and available to you, it's our gift to you. You're going to want it. All right, it's free and it's awesome. And of course, as always, you can email us or get a hold of us directly through loadedradio.com in the contact section. We always love hearing from you. All right. So for Johnny Rude and for everybody else at Loaded Radio and loadedradio.com, I'm Scott Penfold, and we'll talk to you again next week on a new edition of the Loaded Radio podcast.
Loaded Radio.